Hey everybody, welcome to the Big Bluecast. Today is Monday, September the 28th, 2020. Today we're going to take a look back at this past weekend's season opener for Kentucky football against the Auburn Tigers. Kind of break down everything that we saw from our team. And we're going to look ahead to this coming Saturday's week two game against Ole Miss. I'm kind of glad we're doing this today instead of yesterday or Saturday evening because I will freely admit that after that game was over on Saturday, I was very kind of just, Kentucky football fan like we talked about last week, very just like I had a little bit of doom and gloom going Saturday
Very
evening.
salty.
Yeah, just a lot of stuff, like just a lot of aggravation and things like that. I wouldn't necessarily say I was, piddling around like the sky's falling or anything, but was definitely, I think, initially a lot more harsh about the outcome of the game and having about 48 hours to kind of digest everything and put things into perspective. Um, I'm honestly not that upset with how things turned out. Granted, we didn't win the game. What was it, 29-13 final score?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, the score wasn't really indicative of kind of how the two teams matched up, I don't think. Made it look like we got pounded a lot worse than we really did. Um, what are just some big things that kind of stuck out to you, just kind of on the surface?
Well, to kind of go along with what you were saying there, I mean,
Yeah.
um, right after the game, I was a little bit salty, and it was one of those deals. It was like, okay, so now it looks like we got blown out, and I think
Yeah.
of it just kind of boils down to I wasn't expecting to win that game, and
Mhm.
the fact that the team gave us an opportunity to, and then absolutely just fell on their face as far as that went was just really frustrating.
Right.
But as far as the game went, like game plan. There was some questionable play calls from Eddie Gran.
Hmm.
Just some positioning things. It's
Hmm.
like, oh, well, here's our receivers for the slants, and oh, by the way, we're going to line them up on the line of scrimmage, and that's where they're just going to stand like and not do anything.
Yeah.
So when they catch the ball, we don't get a loss of yards, which is an improvement over the past, but at the same time, you don't gain anything, and that's not good.
Yeah.
Playmaking by the quarterback. Wilson finished with a QBR of 71.2.
Right.
He was 24 of 37, 64% completion. That's not terrible, but he had two turnovers.
Hmm.
And the one turnover really cost us.
The
Both of
bit
them
like the
cost us, but
turnovers, yeah, but like, just the way that those fell and just the results of those turnovers in particular were just brutal. Um, I mean,
yeah, they
if you're going
literally
to have
took it
two,
from a one possession football game to what you see in the final score.
totally just changed everything. I mean, huge difference makers, not something that they were able to even somewhat make up in any way.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, stat wise, Kentucky dominated.
yeah, I mean, that's why when we were talking about this earlier, it almost seemed like a statistical anomaly or something. Just when you look at time of possession, things like that, it's like, how does Kentucky not win that game? um,
The three turnovers,
yeah, I mean, and just those three turnovers and
some poor decision making on the quarterback's part.
mhm. So here's my thing. Like, it's really interesting with Terry Wilson because I mean he's a quarterback, so like quarterbacks can be just very polarizing guys anyway. And we've had a lot of guys like that, even Kentucky football, whether we've been good or bad. But do you feel like Terry Wilson is a more polarizing character than usual as a starting quarterback for us? Because I feel like typically, no matter what happens, you have a lot of people that just crush him, no matter like just pull out all of his problems and everything, and just absolutely bury him like he's a terrible quarterback. And you also have people that like will not criticize him practically. I mean, are just like, nope, he's our guy. I don't care. Just roll with him. I don't. I hardly ever see anybody talking just kind of like straight down the middle about him. Or
Right.
am I crazy?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head on that one. I mean, that's why I'm looking at the numbers here. I mean, QBR is
Hmm.
71.2. That's bad.
Yeah.
But he does have a lot of rust to knock off. And honestly, I
Hmm.
thought going into the third quarter, I was like, okay, he's looking a lot better than he did in
Yeah.
the first half. He's starting to look more like the quarterback, and then things start coming apart.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like Wilson, if he's very, very, I'm trying to think of a good way to put this. He's a very emotional quarterback.
Hmm.
If things are going really well and he's feeling it, he's a really good quarterback. He's very dynamic. But as soon as he has a couple slip ups, it's like he can't recover from it. It's like it just goes downhill from there.
Well, it's like the old adage, the quarterback has to have the shortest memory. Whenever he messes something up, he needs to be able to move on to the next play and just forget about it and,
And it seems
try to
like
make
Terry
something
has a hard
happen.
time doing that.
Hmm. And we've been talking about this a little bit, but I said, I think in a lot of ways, I mean, I don't want to say he has just like a really bad football IQ, but I feel like a lot of the time, unless he's going to be running or, just nickel and diming it, if he's going to try to do something where he has to be more creative or something like that, I feel like a lot of the time it's like the coaching staff has to basically just draw it up for him, say, here's exactly what you need to do, and it needs to work that way. Otherwise, if he has to kind of figure something out on the fly and get creative, a lot of times he's really lacking there. You can tell it just takes too long to kind of go through that. And even when he's trying to throw, like it just doesn't get where it's supposed to be, or the guys just drop it and there's confusion. Um, do, do you ever kind of just notice that about him when push comes
Yeah,
to shove?
he's
Like,
very indecisive. And
yeah,
it seems like, too, like he always broadcasts where he's going, or, where he's going to go.
yeah.
Every
I
time
mean,
as soon as he snaps the ball, he's looking where he wants to throw the football. Then he might look away. He didn't used to do that. He might look away, but he immediately looks back, and then if it's not
mhm.
there, then he panics.
He panics, and then yeah, we just have a mess.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you can't do that. You got to look with your eyes, not your head. And he is
Right.
terrible about looking with his head.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I thought at least, especially at first, what I was looking at was to see when he's moving around, how does that knee look? And as far as I could tell, I thought the knee looked pretty good, all things considered. I mean, I wouldn't have expected running wise for it to really look any better. Um,
No, you
I
can tell
mean, is
he's a
he?
little timid on it.
I mean, definitely timid, but I just mean in terms of when he actually did have to run. I mean, yeah, you could tell there was some reservation there, but in terms of just the physics of it, like his knee looked like it was in pretty good shape. It didn't look like he was really, being hampered by his, recovered knee, which was good to see. And hopefully, as the season kind of unfolds, he'll get more and more comfortable. I mean, I don't blame him. You're playing a team like Auburn, and you have this basically reconstructed leg coming off a really bad injury. I mean, yeah, he's probably at least for a half, if not a whole game, going to be pretty timid about that. Totally understandable. Um, but yeah, like especially in the first half, especially when the game first started, we were kind of trading. They might go three and out, we'd go three and out. We score, they score. And I thought, okay, I mean, if nothing else, we're hanging with these guys, even though we are doing some kind of silly stuff, shooting ourselves in the foot. I was still happy all the way up towards halftime, thinking, okay, like we're hanging with them. It's a 1 point game. I mean, what else could you really want? This is our tune-up game. It's playing the number 8 team in the country, and they're good. Um, but definitely, especially the play calling and that sort of thing in the first half, you could tell they were playing very conservatively, trying to just kind of ease Terry into it, which I get because, I mean, yeah, you're going to have to ease him in. He's barely played in the last 2 years. That's just kind of what it is. But when you're playing a team that good, that's not really like winning football, at least on the surface. It's going to be, hard to do that sort of thing for a whole half and expect to, you know, really do anything special,
And it all
which is
comes
great.
back to the turnovers. Kentucky had to be mistake free, and they weren't.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, I mean, I thought throughout the game there were just some interesting things where old Kentucky football reared its ugly head back at us, like the one player just shoving the guy and getting the 15-yard penalty, which as soon as that happened, I went through this weird little emotional spiral where my knee jerk reaction, like I went ballistic. And then after a second, I just stopped and started laughing. Like, that is so Kentucky football. Like,
I don't
why
think
would
I
you
ever
do
laughed at
that?
that one there. I probably, you know, one of my buddies that was over watching the game with me probably thought I was having
Yeah,
a Nick Saban moment on the
yeah,
couch because I was like looking for something to throw. I was just
yeah. I mean, I was texting you. I was so angry, and then after a minute, like, I'm kind of a nervous laugher by nature anyway, so I just couldn't help it. It's like that's just okay. I guess that's what we're doing.
oh yeah, it was like
Dead ball just goes up and shoves the guy.
it was like the pick
Doing?
six that got
Yeah,
called back due to the targeting, but the pick that Terry threw, like before he threw it, is like, "Don't you dare throw it there!" Like as soon as I seen where he was looking, I was like, "Don't you dare do it!" He did, and the
yeah.
interception happened, and I absolutely went nuts.
I was going nuts before he even threw the ball because in that whole sequence, I mean, we can go through that too. I mean, we come down, we should score. We're just a few yards away from getting a touchdown and
Should have
hopefully
had a
going into the
touchdown.
going into the locker room, like 8-14, having a nice lead going into halftime would have been great. And honestly, like we'd have been in good position to just go ahead and win that game if things could have gone that way. Chris Rodriguez tries to run up the middle. He's definitely over the plane. I mean, still images going
At
everywhere
least
where
a
he's
yard
over.
past.
Yeah, and the fact that they reviewed it as long as they did and then still upheld the like what?
Yeah.
I mean, just unbelievable. So they do that, and then they call the thing back, no touchdown, and then well they tried to like run it one more time, and then we're like 3rd and 1, and when I see Terry drop back to throw and he's looking, I'm already yelling. It's like oh my god, what are you doing? And now granted, they were out of timeouts, so I guess they were trying to stop the clock or whatever, but it's just like boom, pick six. They called the targeting, and then the whole thing just went off the rails. And
As close as they were, one of those deals, run out to the middle, take a knee.
yeah,
That way you set your kicker up for a nice, easy field goal.
and that's what I'm thinking is, I mean, we were at 3rd down, so it's like just like you said, take the knee, do something, stop the clock, and go and kick a field goal, and then at least we'll go in to halftime with a lead.
Yeah.
I mean, things didn't go our way, but you know what? It's okay. We did the next best thing, best we could do given the circumstances. But that, even though they called it back, that pick six, that was where the momentum from the game totally just swirled around. I mean, I was hoping going into halftime, I thought, okay, at least this is like right before halftime, they can kind of regroup, get situated, and maybe come out and turn this thing back around. But it's like the wheels had already come off, and I thought most of the second half things were just kind of discombobulated, just more like poor decision making and kind of head scratching moments.
Yeah, the free plays,
Yeah,
not going for deep passes, the 2-point conversion
and
where it's like, oh, it's just throw it away. It's like, it's a 2-point conversion. What are you doing?
and I'll have to freely admit, like, and not to just try to not crushing Terry or anything, but when we were going for the 2-point conversion, he just chucked that thing right out of bounds. I mean, I started laughing because at that point, like, I don't know, I was just kind of spinning anyway in my own head, watching all that
I
unfold.
was,
But,
yeah, there was a lot of choice words being tossed around the house that particular moment.
but
But
yeah, to me, like that just, I don't know. Just the way I react to a lot of stuff like that sometimes is just, I can't help but laugh. But as soon as that happened, I was like, well, okay, here I was trying to talk up Terry Wilson coming into this. He's going to be fine. Well, when you're doing stuff like that, doesn't make my prediction look good, buddy.
yeah,
Not really. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
the turnovers hurt my prediction. I thought if it was going to be
Yeah.
a score in the 20s, I thought we would be good.
Hmm.
And it was a lower score than that, which I really thought would have been played into our advantage, and it should have. But the turnovers killed that.
Yeah. I mean, if things hadn't gone quite that way, I mean, this is woulda, coulda, shoulda. But I mean, it is very feasible that game definitely could have ended with us either winning or being like within 7 points
Yeah,
and looking a lot better than we look coming out of that. So that aspect of it is very disappointing. Um, yeah, like you said, when you kind of go back and look at the statistics and everything, we didn't play as bad as it looked on the surface when you're watching the game live. I mean, I thought the secondary was awful, but then you look at it and it's like it's Auburn and they have this guy, this wide receiver who's just crushing us. I mean, what do you want?
Yeah. Yeah, for the
So
most
in
part, the
some,
secondary played better than I thought they would.
mhm.
I mean, Kentucky, I mean, they did a pretty good job other than him. I mean,
Yeah, and he's just really good. So I
Kentucky
mean,
only gave up 233 yards in the air.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
that wasn't terrible.
Well, and I think a big problem with that too is that Bo Nix, in a lot of cases, especially in the second half, I was noticing it more, just had way too much time. Um,
He had plenty of time, and we had a lot of missed coverages that was
yeah,
made it easy passes.
yeah, like the coverage just got sloppy, and then just over and over, Bo Nix would drop. Because I thought, okay, if we can stop the rushing game, then at least that puts us in good position defensively because they're going to have to rely on him to connect all these passes. And then every single time he would drop back, and you could tell the pocket wasn't going to collapse or anything. Nobody was going to get to him. And he just had as much time as he needed. I just cringed because I knew, okay, he's going to launch this thing down the middle like 15, 20 yards, and there's going to be a guy there. We're not going to have anybody near him. And that's what happened most of the time. Um, so, I mean, that aspect was really disappointing. But like I've been saying, you got to think about who the opponent is, the fact that it's week one. I mean, granted, it's week one for them too, but all these things were, just have no chance to really tune up, and you've got your quarterback trying to weave his way back into the fold and get comfortable. It was definitely an uphill climb, but I don't know. All in all, I can't say really upset uh, about their efforts this past weekend. The big thing for me is going to be playing Ole Miss this coming Saturday. Because one, now that's a must-win game. If they lose that game, we're in trouble.
And it's no longer looks like a gimme game.
Right. They looked a whole lot better than advertised. I mean, passing well. I mean, just lit it up. And
Yeah.
that's why switching over and seeing all that, just like, oh my gosh.
Ole Miss
Okay.
had 613 total yards of offense.
Yeah.
433 yards of that was passing. Florida's rushing defense only gave up 170 yards to the rush. So,
Hmm.
either their rushing game's not very good or Florida's got a really good rush defense. Probably a
Yeah.
combination of the
Probably
two.
somewhere in the middle.
But yeah, their quarterback, Coral, was 23 of 31 for 70% pass completion, 3 touchdowns. He did have an interception, but he had a QBR, even with that interception, of 91.8.
Wow.
Ole Miss had 29 first downs. They only scored 35 points, so evidently Florida's got a really good red zone defense.
Yeah.
They lost 31-35 with all those yards. There was only 4 of 45 yards on penalties. So it looks like they've got the penalty thing down pretty well. Wide receiver Moore had 10 receptions for 227 yards, averaged 22.7 yards per reception. His longest was 57 yards, and they had another 7 receivers with catches.
Jeez.
So Kentucky's secondary is going to have its work cut out, and unless Kentucky can figure out how to air it out better than 233 yards,
Yeah.
or get the ground game going, and from the looks of the numbers, I mean, Florida didn't really run it on them that well.
Yeah, that's gonna be a tough one.
This is going to be a very tough and, like you said, must-win game.
Yeah, and now it's definitely must win. That's why going into the Auburn game and just thinking, maybe it's their first week too. Maybe they'll have some rust to shake off. They have some kind of unknowns on their team. Maybe we can catch them sleeping. They'll look ahead to Georgia. All this hopeful stuff that maybe we can start the year out with one of these upsets we'll be looking for if we want to have a special year. I mean, that would have been great because that would have given us some wiggle room to say, okay, now we can kind of figure ourselves out over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, now that we've lost that first one, we've got like 2 weeks coming up that we have to win.
Yeah, that makes us kind of wish we got that LSU draw, huh?
Right? Right. Seriously. I wish.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would have
don't be
been
wrong.
nice.
The LSU's got plenty of time to turn it around, but
Yeah, but still, if we could have had them in the fold instead of Alabama, it would have been kind of nice.
yeah, because Mississippi State's really not that good.
No, they're not. Uh, So going into this Ole Miss game on Saturday, what are kind of the big, just kind of highlight sort of things you're wanting to see from our team? I mean, I guess we're talking secondary needs to bring it because apparently they're going to pass like crazy, uh, and be good at it. Unless it was a fluke this week, who knows?
Our
Um,
linemen, to me, are going to have to step up their game and keep pressure on Ole Miss's quarterback.
yeah, because they can't be, especially if Ole Miss is going to pass like that and have that kind of success and be
And they
getting those
have
kind
that
of
many
catches.
targets. I mean,
Then we've got to be, yeah.
let's face it. Every time Kentucky's had to go to zone the last couple years on
Hmm.
defense, it has not been good.
Um, and I mean, especially seeing what Ole Miss did this past week, they're Kentucky's going to have to just get that pocket to collapse and not let them just freely throw it around, or it's going to be a long night,
Yeah,
in my estimation.
yeah. With our
Um,
secondary, I think the key is going to be keeping pressure on Coral.
okay, so the thing that I saw going around a lot, especially kind of towards the end of the game and right after the game, people saying, we should have put Bo Allen in, put somebody else in just to see what they can do. If you were if you were Mark Stoops or Eddie Graham, would you have switched quarterbacks there at the end of the game just to see?
Well, I guess it depends. I mean, from
Yeah,
the way the guys in the booth were talking, it was like one page of Eddie Grant's play sheet that he carries around instead of a book, um, like
yeah,
everybody else
just
does. But
hilarious.
one side of it was for Terry Wilson, the other one was for Joey Gatewood.
For Jody Gatewood.
That
Okay,
was
so they
what
weren't
they
really
said.
even
That's what the commentator said. Now, how true that
okay.
is, don't know. But that was the way
So
they were
he,
talking.
yeah. So either that's just nonsense and the commentators were wrong, or they weren't even prepared to play Bo Allen the other
Exactly. It's
day.
one of the two, so take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm. Because yeah, especially there when it got to be maybe like 3 minutes left of the game or whatever, we're down like, you know, at least two touchdowns or whatever, and I'm thinking, I mean, that I had that thought as well, at least for a few minutes, just thinking, if nothing else, you've got just kind of a throwaway series here where it doesn't really matter. Like, just throw the guy in and just see what he can do,
yeah,
or
and what's
whatever. At
up with
least we'll
the
know.
SEC, by the way? Talking about
What about it?
Gatewood. Well, let's
Oh,
face it, Felipe Frank, starting quarterback.
yeah.
So he got approved after transferring last year. You know, he come off an injury. He still transferred. He still played.
Where'd he come from?
Florida.
Okay. Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially just the nitpicky stuff where they cite the bylaws like, well, he's going from SEC school to SEC school, so he needs to have been there a year before he can play and establish residency and all this. It's like, well, what
So did
about this
Felipe
guy?
Franks.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, what about this guy?
How about
Why
Sar?
isn't Olivier
Sar,
Sarr?
yeah, Sar
Yeah,
didn't even transfer from the SEC. So
no. So like, why? Just why? Just let him play. Um, I mean, do you suspect that we're going to get word, like official word, on Joey Gatewood's status by this game? I mean, people thought we might at least hear something by the Auburn game. That didn't happen, and he transferred, back in December.
I would say it's coming
So
this week. I mean, if they've got to play, if they do in
yeah,
fact have half the play sheet dedicated to him,
yeah,
I'm guessing that they think it's coming soon. It may have been one of
hmm
those deals that Auburn had just maybe called the office and went, "Hey, look,
yeah,
we've asked them to make this happen. They've said that there is no gentleman's agreement, which we get it because their fan base is mad. But can you not clear him until after the game, just in case?"
yeah, just to smooth things over a little
Yeah,
bit. Um, yeah, I mean, like you said, if they really do have their plays and everything kind of dedicated that way, and if what the SEC commentators were saying is correct, and they don't even really have like Bo Allen and these other guys in the mix really in their playbook, their play sheet, double-sided piece of paper, um, then yeah, I mean, unless they're just doing typical like Kentucky football boneheadedness, then surely that's because they're confident that he's gonna get eligible to play, hopefully this week. If nothing else, it'd just be nice to have the option. So if Terry comes out and is still just looking skittish or not doing well, and we need to play to win, throw him in there and just see what happens.
yeah. The
Why
one thing
not?
to me that stands out with all this quarterback stuff is why is it always quarterback talk when it comes to Kentucky football?
Oh yeah,
I mean, it
always.
never ever fails. It's like you got a guy that's not performing, and they
Hmm.
just keep on sticking with him no matter what. Is the
Yeah.
backups that terrible,
That's
Because
what I
I
mean.
mean,
Is
they
like,
go other places and seem like they play pretty good when they transfer away. So it's like, why not just go
yeah,
ahead? I mean, I understand there's locker room stuff going on and things like that too, but at some point you
especially
got to
if you're
put the team
gonna,
first.
especially if you're gonna bring guys like they're talking about how good they think Bo Allen could end up being. They bring in a guy like Joey Gatewood. Well, if you're gonna bring in, I mean, granted he wasn't eligible this past game. But let's say he's eligible this week, and Terry comes out in the first half and stinks. Let's just say, then if you're not going to throw Joey Gatewood in the mix and at least give him a shot, then why'd you bring him here?
Yeah.
Like, what's the point? If you're going to get a good quarterback to be the backup, then either throw him in there or he has every right to be upset if the other guy's not doing well and underperforming. He's not even gotten a shot.
Yeah, Bo Allen, I get it.
So,
He's a true freshman, so they can redshirt
true
him.
freshman,
They can redshirt him,
right?
and God forbid something happened to Terry, and then maybe
Yeah,
something awful happened to Gatewood. You never know. You don't
yeah.
want to
And I
burn
can
up
see,
his
yeah,
red shirt because your backup quarterback gets hurt 3 games
yeah,
left in the season because you played him at the
yeah,
first game.
yeah. I mean, true freshman, he's a break glass in case of emergency kind of guy.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it doesn't come to that. Hopefully, the two guys that we have are going to be sufficient. I mean, I'm still hoping that just as these games roll along, granted, our next couple ones shouldn't be as hard as Auburn was, but hopefully, whether they just roll with Terry, and like you said, I mean, if that's what they're going to do, because there's, I don't, I mean, do we honestly think that they're going to? I mean, I think it's pretty much a guarantee they're going to start Terry again
Oh,
on
no question
Saturday.
about it.
Do you think he'll have like a short leash, or do you think they'll just kind of let him go and try to play through it
I
if
would
he's having
hope to
trouble?
say they say short leash because this next game is important.
Yeah,
But just from past precedent, I'd say they give Terry a
yeah,
really, really long leash.
yeah. Like even if he stinks up the first half, I could see it being well, are they actually going to pull the plug and go with Gatewood if he's available? At least some in the second half. See if he can
I
turn the
see it
thing around.
if Wilson sneaks it up for the first half and then starts off the third quarter
Hmm.
playing the same way as far as, if he's sneaking it up. At that point there,
Right.
I can see him maybe throwing Gatewood in at that point, maybe a couple plays into the third quarter, just depending on how Terry
Hmm.
comes out in the second half. But like I said, that's all going to depend on Terry and how he performs. Hopefully, when they got plenty of tape, they know what needs to be worked on.
Well, it's like you said too. I mean, it's an interesting thing when you're talking about Terry Wilson specifically because, like you said, he always shows signs of being kind of an emotional quarterback, and once he starts to mess up, it snowballs, and he's not really that great at recovering and trying to kind of right the ship on his own. So, I mean, that's why I'm hoping to see, home opener. Maybe he'll feel more comfortable playing in Lexington. He's already got a game under his belt, and hopefully he comes out in this game on Saturday in the first quarter and just starts at least doing good, like good to decent stuff. Hopefully he's not doing really bad boneheaded things because I feel like if he starts the game out like that, then if they don't go with a backup quarterback just to try, then it's going to be a long evening.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I want to see Terry have a good game.
Yeah.
I want to see him play well. He's got the athletic ability.
Hmm.
It's just like you were talking about earlier when it comes to the football IQ.
Hmm.
He just doesn't have a lot of snaps.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
And if you get somebody that can perform better, kind of
you got
hate
a
to
guy
be
that's,
that way. You kind of got to
yeah.
say, man, look, we gave you every chance in the world.
Yeah. I
You're
mean,
going to try harder and study harder, and maybe you can win the position
mhm.
back. But as of right now,
Yeah.
we're going to try this
I,
other guy out. If he outplays you, then it's your job to earn it back.
yeah, I would hope that this week in practice they would just say, right now you're our guy. I mean, you're our starting quarterback. We're going with you right now. But if push comes to shove, we have to win this game. And if that means we have to at least take a shot on this other quarterback we've not used yet, then we're going to do it. Like you said, I mean, it's kind of like sometimes what we see with the basketball team.
And
I
the
feel
point
like
guards, they're such divas. I mean,
not even like just the point guards, but like I think back to like Isaiah Briscoe, his second year. I remember there towards like kind of down the stretch of the season, I remember it getting to the point where people were saying like, why is Hawkins not starting? on the wing because it just seemed like he was just kind of meshing better with the rest of the team than Isaiah Briscoe was. And the argument was, well, they're not going to do that because if they take away his starting job, like they'll just lose him and his confidence will go down and all that. Well, if there's a guy that deserves the job more, I mean, it's not. I mean, the whole like when Cal preaches, you have to earn your spot here, and nothing's just given to you. But then we see that kind of stuff happen. I mean, that's kind of like you said with our quarterbacks on the football team. We see the same kind of thing.
And I think as point guards and quarterbacks have the same thing in common. They're
Yeah,
divas and they're very
yeah,
emotional and
yeah.
they're used to being catered to.
Hmm.
Plain and simple. Everybody else is used to getting their butts ripped and torn, but the quarterback, you got to pamper them. The
As I
point
say,
guard, you got to
they're
pamper
pampered.
them and give them what they want.
Yeah,
And that goes all the way back to coaches' faults in elementary school, middle school, high school, AU.
they just take these talented kids and just prop them up.
Yep,
And
exactly. Just go ahead and treat them like you would anybody else on the team and make them a well-rounded human being and player and probably have better
yeah,
results when it comes to the collegiate level.
yeah. Because yeah, I mean, you see this kind of stuff, especially like I said on the basketball side of things, and these guys get to college, and it's like, well, you're not going to be able to just kind of go up and down the court and do whatever you want. You have to play team basketball. We're not just going to give you everything.
It's like all these
And then,
quarterbacks that go to the NFL. They're like, this guy's going to be a great quarterback. And then they're like, why
mhm,
isn't this guy any good in the NFL? Because they don't pamper him.
yeah,
He actually has to
because
earn that position.
because all of a sudden he's very replaceable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a more this Ole Miss game is definitely a more tense situation now. Just because, I mean, you kind of just with how the schedule is this year, like we said, it is a must-win game, and all of a sudden we're in the second game of the year, and you kind of feel like the season's on the line
Like Mark
because
Stoops
if
said, you
they,
don't have a MAC opponent to warm up on.
yeah, and you don't have just like one or two kind of easy cupcake games just sprinkled in there, uh, to get over some of these tougher games. So I mean, it's literally going to be Ole Miss, another game, and then boom, back to one of those five teams that's going to be so hard to beat. So, I mean, when you're talking Ole Miss, Mississippi State, teams like that, I mean, week one, the way those teams kind of showed out a little bit, it makes me a little nervous. I was hoping that, I mean, we're talking SEC games, so our easy games this year are not really easy games, but
No, there's no
yeah,
gimmies this year.
no. But this Ole Miss game seems like it's much more of a tense affair than even I would say the Auburn game, just because the Auburn one you kind of figure you're probably going to lose, but
Well,
this one you have to win.
before the Auburn game, everybody's like, this is the game that can sit there and make the rest of your season easy because, Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, hopefully Tennessee, those are the games that's going to be
Sure,
pretty easy to win. Now all of a sudden, Ole Miss is not one of those teams.
no, not if Saturday was an indication of what they can do with consistency. Then
So if
we're
Kentucky
gonna
wants to go 500, they better go out and beat Ole Miss.
because you're talking if we go in and have a clunker, we just let this team that we should object. That's the thing; it's different. We should be objectively better than these guys,
And we are a
just
favorite
on
right
paper.
now. So
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's our game to lose. This isn't a game where we're punching up and just trying to get an upset. We should win this game, and if we lose it, it's our fault. And it'd be a real shame if that happened, because then all of a sudden you're looking at, well, I guess we're going to have to like go beat Tennessee just to go 500,
yeah.
which would not be. Let's just say I don't think the fan base would be too thrilled if
No,
we're 0
but
2
if
after
Stoops and
Saturday.
company can go in there and work on taking care of the football, I
Yeah,
think that'll help a lot because, Auburn didn't have any turnovers.
yeah,
We were
yeah,
-3 in the turnover category.
yeah, yeah. I think if they can tighten some things up and whatnot this week during practice, then I don't know. I mean, they should be okay. I guess we'll just have to see and
You
just
know,
hope that.
and it's just, further proof of that is let's just go back to the Rich Brooks era even. We had some really, really good secondaries.
Mhm.
And I can't remember what his name was, but he had 6 interceptions.
Yeah,
and he had like three of them in one game, and it was like stat wise we were beat, but
Hmm.
because of those interceptions we won that football game.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Auburn. Those three turnovers are the main reason Auburn won that football game.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, really, you can trace all those turnovers and just their direct results a play or two after, and it just crushed us.
We've got to
Despite,
control the turnover margin.
yeah, absolutely. Like you said, especially when we kind of statistically dominated the game
We
in
did.
basically every metric. I mean, there's no. It's crazy to think that we lost that football game when
I
you look
mean,
at
as,
just the
as much
stat
as we want
line.
to criticize Wilson, I mean, he had 239 yards passing,
Yeah,
24 of 38.
yeah. I
That's not
mean,
bad. And he was averaging 6.3 yards per pass, and that was even with those little slant passes he was doing that were for nothing.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Now our
So all in all,
backs,
I mean, mhm,
they average 3.6 yards per carries as a team.
mhm.
You know, that wasn't terrible, but time of possession, 36 minutes, 29 seconds.
Right.
Terry Wilson, 64% pass completions. Not great, but not terrible.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
acceptable. I'll take
pretty
that
just
against
middling.
a big SEC opponent like Auburn.
Yeah, top 10 team. Yeah,
But
him going
the
64.
one interception, and that interception, because it cost Kentucky points, and the fumble that cost Kentucky points,
His two big ones right there, just in
just
their
tanked
own
his quarterback
ways,
rating. I mean, he should have had at
mhm,
least an 80 something quarterback rating that game.
and totally just changed the complexion of the game.
Yeah.
Despite everything else we were doing that was good, that just
And let's face
tanked
it, if it had been
everything.
Rodriguez or Smoke that had those two fumbles that had cost
Hmm.
us the football game, we'd be talking about what happened to Smoke, what happened to Rodriguez.
Yeah.
That would be the talk right now, and wouldn't be talk about
Hmm.
Wilson. We might have briefly went over he's got to work on his decision making and some of the tweaks and stuff that he needs to make to be a better quarterback. But
Yeah.
right now, he needs to learn how to not have butterfingers.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's weird just because, it's been a couple years since we watched him play a full season. We watched him play two kind of tune-up games last year. Like you said, so far right now, he just kind of looks like he did, first year Terry Wilson. Hopefully, maybe some of his problems will get kind of buttoned up as we go. But at the same, honestly, I feel like he kind of just is what he
I
is.
think he is what he
You
is,
know?
especially at this point. I mean, it's like, all right, dude, look,
Hmm.
you're basically in your third year as a college quarterback, and you still can't hang on to the football.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about that, little spin move he made. When he made the spin move, the ball came out. And I got to think, I was
Nobody
like, I can
remembers.
remember several other plays his first year as
Mhm.
our quarterback that he done the exact same thing. He'd make a little spin move to throw his back into the defenders to try to get a little bit of,
Ball just come right out.
yeah,
Yeah.
and nobody even poked the football out. It was just, he just lost the
He just
football.
lost it. Yeah. Which, I mean, yeah, I can see how that'd be a confidence killer, but it's kind of your own fault.
Yeah,
So,
hang on to the football. It's not that
yeah,
difficult.
if you're gonna get cute and do a spin move, like, make sure you're doing this.
Yeah, tuck that football in with both hands and hold on to it.
Right. I mean, yeah. I don't know. It's gonna be week 2 is gonna be very interesting. We'll see. Anything else you think we really need to cover on the football side of things, as far as wrapping up Auburn or kind of launching into Ole Miss week?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I think we've covered everything. I mean, we talked about some of the stats from Ole Miss. We talked about some of the mistakes we
Yeah.
made against Auburn, and really and truthfully, we held Auburn's pretty reasonable numbers. Our defense wasn't as terrible as we
Yeah.
thought. Other than Williams and Stove, we pretty much contained um,
Yeah.
their pass game, which is good. I mean, I'll take
Hmm.
that. Even though Nix is once again last year averaged 56% of his completions, he upped that number this game, but
Yeah.
he was 64%. No, not 64, but 68.
Mhm.
So he wasn't much better than Terry on the completions.
No, not really. Yeah, like you said, those receivers and stuff they had just kind of burned us up. I mean, they're really good. So it's Auburn.
Yep.
They're just better players, some of them. I mean, when it came down to it, a lot of ways, our teams matched up pretty well. It's just, I mean, we're playing a team that has, one or two stars. We don't really have a star this year. We don't have a Benny Snell that if Terry's doing this and that, and all of a sudden we're on third and 6, we can just hand it to him and he's going to carry 3 guys and get a first down. You know, Auburn had those kind of guys.
Yeah.
We just didn't. So push came to shove. We also had some bad fortune come our way. Call that what it is. I mean, that's kind of what it was. A lot of just bad football luck. But, all in all, can't be too upset about it. Just got to right the ship. And I think if they can go get a win on Saturday, then we're in good shape, just kind of rolling forward. But definitely a must-win game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not really a whole lot to talk about on the basketball side of things this week. Said still waiting on Olivier Sarr, see if he's going to be eligible from the SEC. Basketball schedule is pretty close to being completed, and it's pretty much just kind of like what it originally was. And there was all this flip-flop talk about maybe we'll go down to a bubble for the Champions Classic and play all 3 of the other teams. I guess that's not going to happen now. We're playing Kansas. We still get like Richmond and Detroit Mercy. Kind of that, typical of this part of the Cal era, kind of just a weak schedule overall. Does that disappoint you in any way that like we didn't just kind of get a better schedule kind of rise out of this situation? Because at first it looked like maybe we would just get to kind of like run the gauntlet if we got to shake things up and just go play all these good teams like in respective bubbles and stuff around the country.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little disappointing, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad because it's going to give the players time to learn.
Get it figured out, yeah.
I mean, we're replacing a lot of people, so
replacing all but one guy.
Yeah.
And granted, once we get the schedule kind of finished and shelled out a little bit better, we'll be able to kind of do more of a real. Well, once we have our official word on Olivier Sarr, we'll be able to do a really good kind of in-depth basketball preseason look. But yeah, I guess what they said, we have like one spot kind of left on the non-conference schedule, and it's still kind of up in the air whether or not we're going to play Louisville. I'd seen kind of the stuff bouncing around on Twitter the other day about Chris Mack complaining about the idea of continuing the series this year and bringing the UK to play in the Yum Center, and there not really being any fans, saying that that's unfair, and to do that and then have to go back to Rupp hopefully next year with a full arena. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was kind of funny. I just thought not really had a reason to dislike this guy for the most part up until now, and that was just really wimpy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely so.
Kind of unfortunate. I did like the fact that Coach Cal kind of just fired back and said, well, we're prepared to go and play there, so just let us know.
Yeah.
Hopefully that game still works out. If they get that ironed out and we do get to play them, it looks like pretty much until the conference stuff comes out, the schedule's pretty much done. So hopefully we'll get that kind of stuff ironed out here over the next like week or two if we're lucky, and we'll know who all's playing, where we're playing, who we're playing against, and we can really launch into this thing since basketball season does start in like a month and a half or something.
Yeah,
so
it's not very far away at all. So
no, not a bit. But yeah, unless you got anything else you think we've missed or anything you want to just throw in, I think we pretty much covered everything for this week.
I think so. I mean, everything I pretty much wrote down we went over, so that was all the kind of highlights and stuff that I seen was kind of important. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, hopefully next week maybe we'll have a little bit more news on the basketball side of things, a little more we can really talk about, really dissect if we're lucky. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about no matter which way the Ole Miss game goes, so we'll definitely be coming back with another review next week and looking ahead to week 3. But until then, appreciate you everybody watching. Be sure to like and share the video, subscribe to Big Bluecast if you haven't already. Hit us in the comments if you have anything else to throw in about the Auburn game or just looking ahead to Ole Miss, any basketball stuff, just whatever. We'd love to hear from you. But yeah, I guess if that's it, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.